Yes, welcome everybody to the third live session of the Working Encounters #1. I'm Ivana Marjanović and I'm sitting currently at the Kunstraum Innsbruck where I'm working, and I'm talking to Želimir Žilnik, a film director from Novi Sad. Welcome, Želimire.
Hello, hello.
Hello, yes. I will say shortly about the project that we are working on, and then we will talk about the films. We will have the possibility to see small parts of the films that we will talk about. I'm involved in the project that is called on aliens, villains, and superheroes, and it's a project that was initiated in the context of a bigger network of institutions all around Europe, theaters, art spaces, and so on. And the project is supported by the Creative Europe and the Ministry of Culture of Republic of Serbia, and the Siniša Ilić, the artist whose work we currently see here at Kunstraum, and Bojan Đorđev, who also works with Siniša Ilić, are part of United Artists Labor Organization, and together with Natasha Vatskuljak and me, we conceptualized the project where 15 international artists are working on this topic, and we'll have presentations at the beginning of October, 2nd and 3rd of October. Their works or proposals or sketches and reflections will be on the webpage where you subscribed. Today we have the talk with Želimir Žilnik, who is a film maker from Novi Sad. Želimir was born in Niš in 1942 and has been making films since the end of the 60s, and he was involved in the Yugoslav Black Wave movement, and since then on he has been really like all the time on the set, and he made more than 50 films, and let's say this what we say his career, it was also it is still really like a very intensive and a very important political practice. Well, Želimire, because I could say a lot more, but I would just like that we hear how you are doing. We are talking in Zoom. It's because we are in these specific conditions. And just for the beginning, yes, how are you doing at this time?
Well, I more or less, we are living, and I feel like everybody else. So not much moving, not much, actually completely not any traveling, but a lot of communication, like we are communicating now. And luckily, as we are in a medium of video and film, then we can also somehow communicate with our work and also with some students. So in the same time, we are in the middle of preparation of some new projects, which actually we are not most probably going to start factual work until maybe the next spring, as the situation with these lockdowns and distance and traveling is from day to day changing. But I would say this is the moment when everybody of us has a time for reflecting, and maybe for me it was very interesting that I could somehow dive through my huge archive and finally put the things somehow in some order. Plus, there was a lot of time for watching the movies, or again, in video streams, and a lot of time of, watching videos. So, I mean, I do not sort of feel that we should be just unhappy.
No, of course not. Yes. You said you work on a new film. is it like a spoiler to say what is it about, or we wait spring and later on to hear more?
As you said, I made more than 50 films, and maybe only in 2 first films which I made in late 60s, I announced the films before. You see, but when I went in film business, I felt that it is so untasty by us filmmakers that we start announcing some project which are, first of all, not even written well, and then the financial supporting is not collected. And then after announcement, a lot of filmmakers, they are just, you know, like crying about not enough money and so on. So what I do, I announce a film only 1 week before the premiere.
It's good. Okay. Yes, it's fair enough. Okay, let's go then. I think until now, most of the people are logged in, and let's go into the films that we talk about today. Thank you for sharing the material with our artists. They could watch all of the films, and as the topic that we work on is aliens, villains, superheroes, anti-heroes, we asked you to, we were like proposing to the artists to watch the Kenedi Trilogy, and then in the process of talking to you, it came a proposal that we go back to some also earlier film, Vera and Eržika, that was made in 1981, and also One Woman, One Century that was made in 2011, and so to say, to go back to some kind of like also history of people, of workers who were involved in some kind of either bigger or more micro level actions of managing their lives, and also dealing with some injustices that they faced. And so I would like first to ask you, and then I would show the small part of Vera and Eržika. The film was made for the television in the beginning of the 80s, and you were in a period before in Germany, and you came back. It was a specific historical moment. If you could introduce the film shortly and tell us how did you get to know these women, Vera and Eržika, factory workers in the textile industry in the socialist Yugoslavia of that time?
Well, Vera and Eržika is a film made for television, Novi Sad, actually just 1 or 2 years after I came back from Germany. And in previous time, when I began filmmaking in Yugoslavia, we filmmakers actually did not pay any attention in cooperation with television. We thought television is something else. But I learned in Germany very much by the friend whom I met on festivals and with whom I also had some friendship there, like Alexander Kluge, Fassbinder, Edgar Reitz, Herzog, and so on. I heard and learned that they are so much orientated in collaboration with television. So that made me, I would say, open, that I knock on the door on Novi Sad television. What was a contradiction situation in that moment? My previous film in Yugoslavia have been very much debated. Some of them, they have been censored and even put out of distribution. So when I knocked on the television door, they have been suspicious. They said, oh, well, we will see. What can you do? Give us the texts and so on. So I understood after 2 or 3 months of like talking on cooperation, with whatever you give as a text, then there is the whole like a department who are reading your screenplays and you know, trying some change, trying to install, put some changes. So I understood that I should more somehow think about documentary style, because documentaries are something what is researched out of the institutions, and then you come with material. So that is how I found my method of docudrama. So I was going just for research with small crew, cameraman, and so on, then finding the participants who are willing to cooperate, coming on television and telling them, look, we have people who want some to express some of their concerns and to show some of their fights, but we cannot wait, and we cannot make just ordinary filming of TV film. We have to do it in documentary way. So in this moment, when I was interested to make a film about women workers in textile factory, the reason was that in early 80s, the Yugoslav political situation was very specific. After the death of former President Tito, the whole country was in certain frozen moment, and everybody was thinking what is going to happen with this system where like the workers are somehow in the front line of positioning in the country. So when I was researching through some collectives, I was surprised to learn how, for instance, in many factories, but also in this factory in one small village near Belgrade, Vojlovica, the thousands of women who have been making a textile, cotton textile, actually, which everybody in Yugoslavia wear when we buy our underwear. You see how thousands of them are completely left by themselves. Even the men who are in somehow leading position in the factory, and some of them are skilled engineers who are like repairing the machines, they do not enter the huge factory places where the machines are, because it is so hot, it is so noisy, it is so impossible that the whole buildings are trembling like this because there are huge factories. And then I saw those brave women who work there 8 hours, and then they go home and take care of children and grandchildren and kettles. And I said to my crew, let's dedicate some hours to them. But of course, we didn't have a story. So we start shooting and listening. What do they say? What do they complain? And they told me, well, we get a salary and we can help our families and so. But one big problem is that many of us, we start working after the war, where there was not enough working force, when we have been 14 years old. Now we are here more than 40 years, 45 years, but the new law recognized that one is employed only from 18 years. So these first 4 years, we are, they are like a stone, or they are brushed out. Can you maybe help us? And I said, let's then try to follow you, how you are going to complain of that fact, you see. So that is how I structured the film. Mm-hmm. Of course, when we, now we can say, we can say like everybody when we are making films, and we speak about our heroes like the main actors and so on. But we here have actually the really heroes in a sort of, I would say, very direct way, but not recognized. They are not heroes who are recognized. Only when the film came out, luckily, television production for us filmmakers, on one side is, of course, tricky, but on the other side is tremendously like supportive. Why? On television, you have in the same time production, financing, but also distribution. So you see, when you finish the film, then the producers and distributors, they debate half a year or the whole year, are we going to put it, how we are going to promote. But in television, it goes in a program. And in this old time, this genre television films that was once a week on Monday. Each television station have had some terms to put it all around the Yugoslavia. So when you finish it and it is aired, it is seen minimum by 5 million people. And for me as a filmmaker, the most, I would say, tense moment was how to rethink, as someone who was previously doing like more provocative films actually based on some radical ideas, how I should make another genre with which I am satisfied and which fulfill some of my intentions, but completely different, because they are going to be watched by the 5 million people in the villages and the cities and with the whole families, old people, young people, and so on. So, of course, luckily somehow, with the help of participants and with the help of the crew, I came to one sort of way of writing that I made in 80s for various television, Belgrade, Novi Sad, and Ljubljana, more than 10 films.
Great. Let's watch the short part so people can get the idea of Vera and Eržika, and then we continue talking. Okay, now I have to Bildschirm freigeben. Yes. Okay, I will share the screen now.
Mladinović Verica.
Godina rođenja?
27.
Koliko ste visoka?
170.
Sad usta do zuba stavite celu, levom rukom tu držimo, Verice, levom rukom tu držimo, desnom rukom zapuši nos, udahnite iz cevi koliko god možete, izduvajte sve, udahnite iz cevi koliko možeš, izdvaj sve, duvajte u cevu, duvajte, ne pored cevi, udahni, ne diši, nago duni, duni, udahni iz cevi, ne diši, nago izduvaj, pored cevi duvate, udahni iz cevi, izduvaj, udahni, izduvaj. Vi ste dosta malo duvali, visoka ste žena, dobro, tu su i godine u pitanju, ali u čemu je stvar, zašto ste tako malo duvali?
Ja sam radila 35 godina staža, imam puni radni staž, tako da u tekstilanu je jako prašina, a isto tako i u trudbeniku je pamuk i to je još opasnije, mislim, za pluća i verovatno da je od toga mi nastupilo.
Dobro, vidi se, to je to spirografija samo.
Okay. So yes, we see Vera here, who is going through some medical checks, and actually, what you said, the story about the women who are getting into the process of retirement and face this injustice of the law that does, so to say, favor to kind of like prevent exploitation of children, but applied to the history, to the past, does injustice to these women. But interestingly, or also important, is that what you show very much is how these women workers are actually, how their health is ruined by the conditions in which they work. So, and also, we see their lives, we see their homes, we see also what they do, other activities, how also they are skilled in different kind of things like agriculture, or but what for me, when I was watching, was very strong is this. They try to get this kind of like a disability pension, which would enable them to work into some other, so that they would kind of like get these years. parallelly, they try to organize and find out through some information and advice and talking to some syndicates about the new law. And in the same time, they're actually going into this kind of like a disabled workers who are not able to work anymore the way they worked before. And they talk about also the conditions of work, the factory, the air, the sound, also the shifts that they work, like in the 3 shifts, and the night shift, how difficult it was, because then they have to do their unpaid labor at home without sleeping, and I think this was very this is another. And there was a moment in the film when one of them introduced the other to the colleagues, and she says, "This is my comrade invalid." And I must say, I was very struck by this vocabulary of this brutality of kind of normalizing of the conditions in which they were working. And yes, Želimir, you said before, and so these were the real people, their real lives, and the process of filmmaking was kind of working with them, or they had something to say. And also other films that we will talk about later was the process of people have an agenda in a moment of it's an ambivalent situation while they are workers, and the film also has this ambivalent kind of it's a state that they celebrate, they go to the pension, they sing this song about Yugoslavia. In the same time, there is also disappointment. They talk about the privileges that as a workers they acquired, like apartment from the state, the poverty before, but in the same time is also struggle of these characters. No?
Yes, you're right. You see, for us, not only that film, but actually more or less everything what we did in these 10 years in communication with televisions, I consider as a sort of process of learning. You see, we have been living in this socialistic Yugoslavia, and there was quite a few films about socialistic workers who are building the cities, factories, and so on. And those films, they are, of course, in many cases based on facts, but they are not so deeply going into this rhythm and pace of everyday's life. They are just observing the situation sort of general, like, we are now having much bigger production than before the war in capitalism, or this, all rights, all workers' rights are completely preserved in our country, and everyone can, without any problems, get to some of his rights and so on. But when you go into details, like we did in this situation, what we have seen, first of all, we have seen that actually the people find a way to adapt to various systems, although they have been living as young girls in Kingdom of Yugoslavia, and they remember Second World War as one disaster where they did not take any part, as they have been 15 or 14 years old. But in the same time, I learned actually, maybe first time, and get to be introduced to some people from the previous kingdom who have been capitalist. Vera told me, when I asked her, okay, Vera, do you have do you remember what you did before the war? And she said, I was working in a brick factory, and a brick factory was owned by Mr. Milovanović, who was someone who took care very much of production, and he was very wealthy, but also of us workers. And she said to me, he was then sentenced 15 years or maybe 20 years in jail because he was this capitalist and his wealth was nationalized. But I have heard that he came back from the jail. Do you want to go with me. I want just to say hello to him and to see how in what condition is he. So I said, yes, I will go with you. So there was a huge old villa which was falling apart. And a gentleman, late in the afternoon, came in a coat against the rain, this thick one, and the rubber boots. And she said, this is Mr. Milovanović. But he was like some workers with the cows and cattle. And said, Vera, it's you. I came from jail. And she said, but Mr. Milovanović, this is your villa. It's not in good shape. He said, look, I was so long in jail and I see that there is now a lot of need for food in the big cities because Belgrade is very near. So I start just having pigs. So I have 300 pigs in my villa, and I will let them stay here for 3-4 years until I sell enough and earn enough money to rebuild this villa again. So I understood that actually, and I asked him, but you have been in jail? He said, yes, but the people in the jail saw that I was not in any connection with occupied forces in Vojvodina. There was actually Germans and Hungarians who I was not. So they let me take care of the canteen and so on. So he said, that is another system. So my 20 years, that is maybe something what was put in the. So we sat with the man, and I saw actually not only how capitalists can be fine and very, and the people with a sort of very strong need to work further on, but also how these workers of theirs can communicate on a nice way. So I say, yes. I say that for us, this type of filming and this genre is a process of learning.
Yes, it's also, as you said before when we talked, it's things happen, no? You start and things happen. But now when you talk about this capitalist, and I thought maybe it's time to switch to One Woman, One Century, because there we have a woman who is approaching her 100th birthday, and she also is a worker. She was a worker. She was a woman coming from a poor Istrian family, and very young came to Belgrade, and she was, through her brother, who was to earn some money working in the theater as a singer. She got involved, and she got to know a number of men and women who were leftist, anti-fascists of that time, and very important people that unfortunately nowadays we have less and less also memory, and this film also is important for bringing back this history to the public. And but what I now, because you talked about the capitalist, what Dragica tells in the film is also that she started working for Philips company. So she came to Belgrade. It was very difficult. She was very young, and all this kind of finding ways and strategies of survival, as a workers, also in Kenedi Trilogy, it's a lot of this strategy of finding ways, earning money. So she started working for Philips, and it was this group of around her and her brother, people like Otto Bihali-Merin and other people who were very critical of these capitalist conditions, and they convinced her to quit a job. But she was earning, she says in the film, she was quite good paid, but they said, no, but you have to go to the theater, you have to go to the exhibition, you will get sick. So it's interesting how there it comes the leftist ideology, the politics, and to change the work where are the limits of what is tolerated. And so she gets involved in this movement, and then during the Second World War in the partisan illegal troops. And why this film is also very interesting is because her experiences and her political work turns out then that from being a hero of the partisan struggle and the war veteran, she turns then to be a political enemy. And this is also interesting how people who are, so to say, who are honored as heroes, how the political systems also can shift into somebody becoming created as an enemy and then suffering a loss. So maybe you can introduce a little bit also how you got to know her, and I would then play a little bit of the film, how you got to know her, and yes, your motivation also, sorry, Želimir, to make this film, and also the decision, to tackle this ambivalent history, because in our former Yugoslav space, there is a very strong historical revisionism process, and people that she mentioned, Moshe Pijade, Mitra Mitrović, all these important people, people don't know about them, no? Maybe they know a hospital, Dragiša Mišović, so they know the name, but who were these people, what they did? And she brings this back, so to say, in the film. Yes, please.
Yes, it is also quite interesting how we met. There was a celebration of one women magazines, like 50 years of it, which started coming out even before the Second World War. And that was a gathering in Belgrade where the various old and young people came, intellectuals, to hear what's going on. And that happens sometimes in maybe middle 70s. So one lady, that time 70 years old, came to me and said, Želimir, I would like you to listen to my story. Maybe it could be interesting for your films. I'm watching your films, but now we both are under some sort of observation. I just came from the jail, and I see in the newspapers that you are also having problems with censorship. So better that nobody make a photograph of us, so you can be harmed. And she gave me the telephone number, and she said I was in late 20s, one of editors of these women magazines. Mm. So I completely forgot the whole thing. In 2009, I got a telephone call, and she said, Želimir, are you still alive? We met 20 years ago. I'm Dragica Srđentić. I would like now, because now the system is changing. That was now, you see, 2010, completely this division of Yugoslavia. Again, all around the Balkans are spread new lies. So I remember still what was happening from early 20s when Mussolini, fascism, came in Istria. So all of us Slavs and Croats and so on had to change their names. We had all our schools had to be closed. We could speak only Italians. And our family, there was 7 of us, we have been running around to find a way to survive. Someone was in Sarajevo, another was in Zagreb, another was in Macedonia, and I came to Belgrade. So I thought, now she's 99 years old. I thought, let's go there and give her some flowers and somehow talk friendly. But when Sarita and I went to listen, to introduce ourselves to her, we found that her brain is working as the 10 brains of most clever people I know around me in Yugoslavia, and she will remember 300 names in a time when they had been making these leftist magazines. Then another 300 names when she was in this company for like export kingdom state company for agricultural export. And then another 300 names when she was in this partisan movement. In meanwhile, she was also 3 or 4 times in jail, even in concentration camps during the war and then afterward. So I was fascinated. I said, we have now encyclopedia in front of us. And she said, but you see, we have to raise our voice against these lies, you see. And then when she started to talk the factual history, who is 100% different than this history who is now taught in the school today, and even this history which was taught in the school in socialistic time. You see, she, for instance, when we are speaking about, you know, as you said, fascism and anti-fascism, so she said also among even some ministers and among some people in army, there was anti-fascists, and of course, we communists, we have had also the connections with them. We have been illegal, but at the same time, my husband was like a member of Politburo of Communist Party, which was secret, but he was the second man in National Bank because he was so good in economy and finance. And after the war, in Tito's regime, he was also the second man for economy, you see. And then when I was listening, and I said, but Dragica, what do we have? You are old, I'm old, but film has to move and to somehow show us various spaces. And she says, Želimir, bring me in 2 places. First, in my birthplace in Istria, that is Sovinjak, to see who my friends survived. And second, bring me to Moscow. I said, why to Moscow? She said, because when I was, after the war, being invited to work in Minister for Foreign Affairs, as I am from Istria, I was in this commission for making the border between Italy and Istria. And one morning, the minister came to me and said, Dragica, you speak languages, prepare yourself, tomorrow you have to fly to Moscow in 48, in March of 48. She said, I don't have passport, everything will come before you climb the, and what shall I do in Moscow? Here is a letter from Tito, bring it to Stalin. And she said, I was in Moscow 7 days. So it was again for us adventure to work with her. Adventure from the various aspects, from this knowledge, and we have been then checking if she's telling the truth or not. So we have been surprised. No, one line we found. And then it was also this, how would I say, mystery of making the films as some sort of joint venture of participants, of the crew, but also surrounding. We went in a flight company, in that time yacht, and asked for 5 of us tickets to Moscow. When the documents from Dragica, they said we cannot give her a ticket. She's 99 years old. No insurance company in Europe will give insurance for her. She can die in Moscow. And we said, what shall we do? They say, go to Russian flight company because it's in Belgrade. And we again asked the ticket for her. And she said, what this old lady want to do in Moscow? We said, she brought a letter to Stalin. She wants to see Moscow again. So the man came and saluted. And she said, she will be our guest.
Let's see Dragica short, so that people who didn't see the film before get the impression about her. Okay, so I have to Bildschirm freigeben. Thailand. Just a second. Okay.
I tamo smo proveli nekoliko, s Grcima, nekoliko meseci i onda je opet brigada trebala da idemo iz Grčke, da idemo gore prema tamo Šar planine i ne znam gdje smo sve išli. Međutim, Tamo je bila tako, još Bugari su bili opasni sa Nemcima i mi smo se, šta da ti kažem, u toku dana se održimo na nogama negdje u nešto i nešto pucamo, a oni stalno dovode ljude i pucaju na nas i mi se noću smo se probili i ponovo otišli u Grčku. A to je bila zima, led. I onda se ta brigada se nije bila u sastavu, znaš, nego da ide kao bataljoni, nego smo podeljeni u desetine i tako. I tu desetinu u kojoj sam ja bila, došli smo da branimo, da ostanemo na obali Crne reke, gdje se mora preći preko pa otići dole za Grčku. I ja, znaš, ne spavaš uopšte, normalno, nego preko dana se boriš da ostaneš živ. I ja se cijelo vrijeme trljam snegom, jer je zima, trljam i ruke i to, da ne zaspim. Jer ako zaspim, kao da oni dođu, evo idete, idemo, ja bi ostala tamo, moram biti živa. I tako sam ti ja posljednja pošla, ta naša desetina je bila koja je branila da ovi pređu, posljednja, i ovi koji su bili na razdaljini otprilike 15-20 metara jedan od drugog, oni su svi otišli obučeni kroz crnu, a ja sam se skinula kod majke rođena i metnula sve na glavu i kad sam izašla iz crne sam to brzo obukla, ali suho. Ovi koji su mokri prešli preko crne i to je bilo dubaka voda do grla. I da, nastala je takva vejavica, takav strašan hlad, da su mnogi ostali zamrznuti. Ali ne samo zamrznuti, nego kad moraš, to je sneg veliki bio, pa se borimo po grupama da prstimo taj sneg, da se može ići, jer visok je sneg. I tu vidiš samo krvave stopala.
Marshal Tito, leader of the Yugoslav partisans, poses for the newsreel cameramen for the first time. A thorn in Germany's side, he and his guerrilla bands have waged constant war on the invader. Hiding in a mountain fastness, these patriots strike swiftly and suddenly at superior Nazi forces. Many women are in the groups that time and again have won towns and villages against heavy odds. Brave men and women who will never bow to the invader or let Yugoslavia die.
Okay, I'm back.
Yes.
So, Želimir, maybe just a short comment. You also decided to kind of use other materials, newsreel, and then she goes to Moscow, so to bring this context of the Cold War, which was the context also that had a lot of influence and impact on her life and the destiny of prison and this split of Yugoslavia and so on. So just like maybe artistic decisions to work with the animation. You have also animations in the film and the newsreel, and then you have these travels of her and the interview. Yes. I guess you had a lot of material.
Of course, there was not much photographs, but there was about 50 photographs, what she found, and a lot of press material, what she gave us, and facts from biography. But what for us was the magical moment. When we filmed it and edited it, we thought, okay, we are doing something what should stay maybe in some libraries or maybe in some archives, because she has this she's so strong witness of the moment. But then we got an invitation to make premiere in Dom Omladine in Belgrade, and the best Belgrade intellectuals have been there, from Makavev to all these famous columnists and things, and they have been stunned with the film. And Dragica was proclaimed as like a mystery, because she was someone who came in a time of these lies and revisions of the past, with like a very raw truth. And in 2 months, next 2 months, there was a premiere in Zagreb, Ljubljana, Sarajevo, all over the world, and she was coming there and giving the speeches. So in the middle of this revisionistic time, she said, look, I know what fascism is. I know also the black side of communism, as I was 4 years in the jail, together with my husband, but I warn you, if you are not enough taking care, the new Mussolini and Hitler will be born out, because the rascals who are now on power in post-socialistic says that is a cradle for fascists. So she was then reviewed in more than 110 huge articles in the newspapers all over the country. It's interesting, and luckily she lived another 4 years, so she somehow was witnessing that her message came through.
Yes, and now I remember also what we talked before about the Kenedi and in the film's Kenedi Trilogy. It was again, and this is also in the film, of this situation of getting to know people who have urge, they have something to say, and there is simply the information is not there. So because you were in Germany living in the 70s and you faced in the beginning of 2010s, 2000 especially, in this transition time, the post-war time, that people around you, some Roma kids and adults, were speaking German language. And you were around with, you said that you were around with the film crew, and they came to you and they wanted to send a message to their families because they were deported and they were thrown, so to say, in a completely situation of having nothing. And in that time, we didn't have the Viber and WhatsApp and all these things that people can share the messages. So the film crew was addressed to, because to find also families, because people were completely, some family members were deported from the Germany through this agreement for readmission of the war refugees. And what you found out is that actually again, this kind of like a bureaucracies and political agreements, in reality, people are left alone, they have no money, and they go through the struggle to manage their lives completely left alone, and in a very difficult and a very racist context. And so yes, now another character, so to say, because these are not fictional characters, are people like Kenedi that you get to know as a deported Roma man, and who then tells his story and also manage his life, help other people, or also earn money. But you get in another moment, so to say. It's this a transitional time, but so to say, now we have also the Fortress Europe, but Kenedi is on the other hand also trying to reorganize, to go back to Germany in different kind of ways, which is also very important, this power of his action there. Can you tell shortly about
that filming also came actually being inspired by some factual situation which we have seen in the cities. In Novi Sad, in some part of Novi Sad, we found we met quite a few group of youngsters who have been like feeling uneasy in the city and actually speaking German or some other language among themselves. So I didn't know what's going on, as it was this moment when Serbia proclaimed that we are now in modernization. That was the time of Đinđić government and everything is going in European direction. So I said, what's going on? They said, we've been expelled, abgeschoben. Our family. So I said, well, because maybe you made some criminal deal or your parents. No, that is disagreement. So as we have had the cameras and things, we asked them, what can we help you? They said, can you maybe help us to come to some place where we can write the emails and communicate with the people, with our school friends in various parts of Europe? And then we said, let's start with making video messages, and then we will you can send it to them. That is how we start filming and making debates, actually with no ambition to make documentary, maybe some documentation. But then step by step, we heard on these public debates where also came some people from administration, but also some people from European cultural centers, from the countries where the people have been expelled, that there are some very weird contradictional situations. Some European countries have been paying our government for each family some support of 5,000 euros, and no single euro came to that family. So we understand that there is some injustice, some sort of very shady deeds. And then we pressed to see what's going on. And nobody in minister, even in our ministers, so-called democratic ministers, they didn't want to communicate with us. They didn't want to let us to airport to just wait for the people who are each day with few planes deported from various countries. So I said to these Roma people, do you know anyone who is over 18 years old who speaks at least Serbian, Roma, Ashkali, German, and maybe Albanian? Because I would like someone who would be like a communicator for this documentary film. So 5 people came and we made a small test filming, and I said, this Kenedi is the best. And he said, I was expelled 2 weeks ago. I said, okay, you have also your own experience. And then we start making the film. So as you see, films are also this mean of communication. Film is really, you see, on media is a message. So can you imagine, after actually this simple moving and work and few debates in Novi Sad and Belgrade, I got a telephone call from Germany, from the lady whose name is Claudia Roth. She said, ich bin Claudia Roth, ich bin in Presidium from Grüne Partei, was immer. So I didn't know who is she. She said, you are making some films which is completely on agenda of our Green Party. So why you are spreading lies that our country did not give any help? I said, come to here. So in 3 days, 3 representatives from parliament came and they start talking to me as I'm some in administration. They said, leave me alone. Here are 100 addresses, go in those families. So they went in some families, you know, I didn't go with them. I say, they all speak German. So they came crying, like, what disaster we did. And then actually there was the moment when we made the film, which went on 100 festivals, and what is even more interesting, started those debates also in Germany and some other countries like Luxembourg and so on. So they somehow have been more open to help the good students and the pupils to stay and to get some scholarship and so on. But in our country and in our city, Novi Sad in Belgrade, for me the most important message was that actually this lie in the press that all those families did some criminal deeds and they are expelled because of that exploded out because it was not truth.
Yes, yes. No, it's what I find very important is also like to break this image, you know, to tell the context behind how actually people are produced as homeless, how they are produced as how these agreements and so to say governments what happens and how they handle. I mean, it's really like incredible. And we have here also a situation that some people are becoming aliens, so to say. They are not belonging to any of these countries because they were the refugees of the Kosovo War and living from another territory, then deported somewhere else to Belgrade, Novi Sad. They have nothing there. So it's also kind of situation how film can also intervene in these racist images that are produced through the news, through the newspapers, and also like argue differently. Maybe because we are 5 minutes before the end, I would, we have 2 questions that I saw, and let's look at them. And what were the production conditions for the black film 1971? Did you receive state support? What were the immediate consequences? The black film 1971.
Yes. Black film, it is a short film, maybe 12, maybe 13 minutes, which I filmed as my reaction on a pressure where we filmmakers have been accused for our previous films. I was having long film early works, and Žika Pavlović, Makavev, Sasha Petri, some others. Those films have been well received, even awarded in Pula and abroad, and celebrated. Not me, I was very young, but also I got also Grand Prix in Berlin. And then we have been at once start being so criticized as we are having political ambitions, like to change the system and to criticize the, I don't know, the roots of communism and so on. So we wanted to take part in those polemics, but there was no way. Nothing of our answers have been published anywhere. You will be surprised. 1,000 excellent critics for previous films have been written in all newspapers, and then after this political pressure, nothing. And I was in that moment making one small documentary film about Novi Sad in Novi Sad for Neoplanta Film, and I had a crew. So I said to this crew, Karpo Godina, cameraman, and Andrej, and some of my friends, I said, look, let's just spare some negative, and I would like to make my statement about it. And let us tonight at midnight find some homeless people in Novi Sad and bring it to my house, and I will keep them there until I try to find some sort of help for them. So it will be like a film protest, film provocation, film intervention. And that happens, you see. I didn't say to my family that I will bring the people, so this friend they found. So actually, we did use film material and laboratory which we had for this project about Novi Sad. One part of Novi Sad, Liman, was rebuilt, and then I was making a film about actually how a swamp became a city. So we made this film. So I do not have any, no support came on the project. No money came to the crew. And But when the film, we had in that moment a very excellent producer, the general manager of Neoplanta, whose name is Sveta Udovički, who produced Rami Radovi, who produced VR of Macaver and so on, these excellent films. Afterwards, he also was kicked out. But he was tolerant. He said, well, you can send it on festivals, and then on festivals, the films have been accused, but some of them a bit supported. But anyhow, it was the way how to actually spark debate with the answer in a film medium. If you have seen this black film.
Yes, I remember I was watching it also long ago when I was at the university studying, and I think maybe we can, because we have to slowly end, and we will switch to the private session with some of our artists and our team, so we can then continue discussing and also about their works. But maybe I give a comment, and then I would like to show a little bit of the Kenedi, just that we stay fair to all three films. What I think is very important, I mean, I come from the visual arts, and it's very different kind of production conditions in visual arts in comparison to theater, and not to talk about film, which is very expensive. And I think what's very important is that finding other ways to produce films, and this you did a lot, kind of finding other kind of possibilities of making films without having access to millions and millions of euros for films. And this gives a possibility also for different kind of spreading of messages, because as I know in Austria, to make a feature film, it goes step by step of making part of the film, then the commission look at it and approve if there will be a next step. And so the funding is also very much like having the control of the content of the film, no? So,
well,
yes.
What I just want to say is some sort of, I would say, a good message for young generation. Do not listen to stories and illusions that in the time when my generation was young, filmmakers, 50 years ago, that the condition for works have been better. No, you are living today in an ocean of freedom because you have access to technology, to camera, to sound machines. You have now this new digital filming, which does not need so much light and anything. So you can start your film asking nobody, just someone who is in front of your camera, making her or him question, do you want to be filmed with me? In our old time, you know, making only just collecting the technique was as complicated as if I would say, okay, for this interview, I would like that you come in Rolls Royce and you send me some Pullman and so on, because cameras have been so expensive, so rare, that the raw material was impossible to get. The crew, minimum crew for short films was like 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 people. For small long film like our early works, which is also characteristic that the film was not supported by any fund, by any state fund. It was just the money which Avala Film gave for from the profit as a risk, you see. But even that small amount of money, they say, we will give you a minimum. That was the minimum budget, that was $150,000. $150,000 minimum, you see. And average film in that time was $500,000. So, but you have this new possibility and use it. And I mean, as you know, the films, they last almost like books, 30, 50, 40 years. And some of the things which you authentically put together, then they can live long, like Dragica Srđančić, 99 years.
Yes, thank you. Before I play the part from the Kenedi and we end with it, I would like to say, those of you who are interested to see some more of Želimir Žilnik films, if you are in Vienna, Želimir is having an exhibition at Kunsthalle Wien, curated by VHV, and also he will be at Biennale. There will be a retrospective, so this is one of the possibilities to see Želimir, and maybe it's planned that he comes to Vienna and spend some time, and yes, let's see.
Everything depends on Corona.
Yes, but we have Skype and Zoom. Huh? Let's watch now, or you want to say something for
Yeah, I just want to thank everybody for attention, and I'm sorry if we have been too much boring, but I mean, that's life.
Oh, we were super. Okay, so I will now show Kenedi, and we switch to the internal session. Look at your mails, the artists who are in the project. Okay.
Wie alt bist du? Wann warst du aus Jugoslawien raus?
Oh.
Mit 1,5 Jahren.
1 Jahr alt.
Wie ist jetzt für dich Jugoslawien? Bist du komisch?
Fremd. Wir kennen das gar nicht, wir waren alle klein.
Sie war 1 Jahr und sie war 9 Monate, ich war 6 Jahre. Da war gar nicht mal auf die Welt, der ist in Deutschland geboren. Mein Bruder ist mit 5 Jahren hierher gekommen, ich mit 6.
Damals war ich 6 Jahre, aber ich bin raus.
Genau,
6 Jahre.
von 91 sind wir weggegangen bis 2002. Wenn wir das schaffen, machen wir das. Wenn es nicht
Wir
geht,
versuchen in der Schule zu gehen.
Was ist dein Leben?
Nein, ich habe gar kein Leben mehr. Mein Vater ist weg. Das ist einfach nichts Schönes. Wir machen viel zu viel mit.
Aber hier arbeite ich für 5 Euro. Von 7 morgens bis 7. Für 5 Euro. Und wie ist passiert jetzt für dein Leben hier?
Das ist alles fremd. Ich kenne das gar nicht. Ich rufe jetzt einen guten Bekannten von mir an und der holt uns dann. Und was soll ich sagen? Ich hoffe, dass wir bei ihm eine Unterkunft kriegen, bis wir unser Haushalt aufbauen. Mein Vater ist jetzt ins Knast gekommen. Was soll ich sagen?
für uns gibt es nicht eine Hoffnung zu aufgeben. Wenn wir gewusst hätten, dass sie uns heute abholen würden, wir würden gerade abhauen, sozusagen. Sie kennen ja Roma-Leute. Sie bleiben nicht hineinladen, sie gehen immer fliegen, 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 bis der Tod und Ende kommt.
We leave, we end, and in the end you managed to enter in the airport. So let's end now. Thank you very much, Želimir.
Thank you.